Here's the harsh truth for health coaches. If you never master sales, you can never make the difference that you know you were born to make. Not because you're not talented, not because you don't care, but because nobody can get results from a program they never join. And this is where so many incredible health coaches stay stuck. They avoid sales, they freeze on calls, undercharge, overexplain, and panic the second money comes up because they think sales is manipulative or pushy, that sales is selfish. But I believe the exact opposite. Sales is service, because if someone has a problem that is hurting their health, their energy, their relationships, their future, and you know how to help them, then helping them move from interest into action is one of the most loving things that you can do. And in this video, I'm going to show you the exact heart-centered diagnostic sales method I've used to help health coaches go from 0 clients to 6 and multiple 6 figures without becoming pushy, fake, or manipulative. Now, in the last video, we talked about attraction, how to become known, trusted, and in demand. But attracting clients to you is only half the equation, because if you can attract people but cannot help them make a decision, you still won't have a business. And honestly, most health coaches are not failing because they're bad at coaching. They're failing because they never learned how to guide people through the decision-making process. The purpose of a sales call is not to pressure someone. There is a saying that a mind convinced against its will is of the same opinion still. The purpose is to determine 4 things. 1, do they have a problem? Do they want it solved? And do you know how to solve it? And then finally, do you want to help them? So do they have a problem? Do they want it solved? And then on your side, do you know how to solve it? And do you want to solve it? That's it. And if you do, then by all means, have a heart and offer to help them solve it. That's it. It is diagnostic. I spent 25 years as a medical doctor, and the one thing you never do as a doctor is prescribe treatment before you understand the diagnosis and what's going on. But that's exactly what most health coaches do on sales calls. Someone says, I want to lose weight, and they're immediately, great, here's my program. No, slow down. We haven't even figured out what's really going on. How severe is it? What's it costing them? Or whether they're actually ready and what their options are. Most health coaches try to convince, but great sales is not convincing someone. Great sales is clarifying, helping someone see where they are now, point A, where they're wanting to go, what are the obstacles that are standing in their way, and a possible path forward. I call this identifying the gap between where they are, where they want to be, point B. If there's no gap, there's no sale. If someone says, my life is fine, my health is fine, nothing needs to change, there's not a sale. But if someone says, I'm exhausted, I'm inflamed, I'm miserable, I'm scared, I've tried everything and I cannot keep living like this, I have to get to point B. Now there's the gap. So the purpose of your questions is not interrogation, it's not manipulation, it's understanding. Seek first to understand. And this is where most coaches stay too surface level. They say, what's your problem? And the client says, I want to lose weight. And then they move on to the next question. No, tell me more. Most of my coaching sessions with my clients, when I was a health coach, tell me more. Tell me more. How long has this been going on? What does this cost you? What is the problem with the problem? What's the big deal? How is it impacting your life? What happens if nothing changes? That's where the truth lives. Have them give you an example. Show me an example, what they mean or how that shows up for them. One woman shared that she got stuck on a playground slide with her child. Another woman said she stood in a pile of clothes and a puddle of tears in her closet because nothing fit anymore. That's the real pain. And if we skip over that, they never really fully connect what it's really costing them to stay put at point A. And this is where you, as a human health coach, has an edge over AI or online courses because you can help that person feel truly heard and seen. When I was a health coach, I had all of my clients off all their medications. I didn't take them off, their doctors did. But it was through the work we did with their mindset and lifestyle. But it was only because we had that initial heart-centered conversation first, where you really hear where they're coming from, why this matters. You're not manipulating someone by helping them see the reality. You're helping them become conscious of the consequences because most people normalize suffering. They get used to exhaustion, anxiety, inflammation, pain, weight gain, hormone chaos, burnout, and they stop realizing how much it's costing them. My mom used to say, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't make it right. But people do acclimatize to the temperature of the water they're in. Things deteriorate gradually, and they often don't even realize how far off track they've become and where that trajectory is leading. And usually that doesn't end well. That's why I left my medical career as a diagnostic radiologist to become a health coach so I can help people get out in front of this endless needless suffering of preventable chronic disease. This is where you can come in as a health coach, but we have to have them see where their current lifestyle and habits are heading and determine, do they really want to get to that different outcome? Now, before I share one of my favorite things to ask about this, if you're wanting more help with sales calls or building a real health coaching business that we're going to cover in this video, but if you want some customized guidance, I host free small group trainings where we actually customize this process to you. So if that sounds amazing, there's a link below where you can apply. Okay, so one of my favorite questions to have them consider is, what happens if this continues? If your weight, so knowing where they're at, if your weight keeps increasing, what happens if your blood sugar keeps worsening? What happens if your exhaustion continues? Where does this lead? Not to scare them, to help them see the definite trajectory so they can take that free will of theirs that they have and make a conscious decision about where they are and whether they want to continue or make a different choice to get a different result. As I say, this is one of the reasons I left my 25-year medical career as a diagnostic radiologist, because I wanted to help people get out of the horrible consequences at the end of some of these choices. And when we know better, we can do better. So I just wanted people to know they had options, and then they can choose to do what they want with that. But this is your opportunity to help people take a moment, consciously choose their path, and the opportunity for them to put a line in the sand and say, I want to make a different choice. Great coaches help clients understand the root cause, because many clients think that it is lack of willpower, for example. But often that's not true. I used to think I had no willpower around sugar. Friday afternoon in the ultrasound department, the senior ultrasound tech would bring down the white dish from the top shelf in the reading room where the radiologists were reading films. And the techs would come to discuss cases with us. And she would open a package of red licorice behind me. And that smell wafted across the room. And suddenly I wanted it. It was distracting me. I'm thinking about the case I'm looking at on the screen, but I'm not going to lie. I was thinking about that licorice that is there behind me, and I knew that was ridiculous. And then when I'd have to go check a patient, as I came back in the room, I'd just casually grab a stick of licorice. And it felt like I had no willpower. I would have believed that too. But later, once I cleaned up my nutrition, balanced my blood sugar, stopped spiking insulin and skipping meals, the cravings disappeared. Gone. So then there I am, same person, Friday afternoon, red licorice, nothing. I'm good. Not even thinking about it. Same circumstance, same me, different physiology. That's powerful, because when you share a story like that, suddenly the client realizes, maybe I'm not broken, fundamentally flawed. Maybe there's something causing this at the root. Maybe it's my physiology. So we have to know as health coaches that past failures do not dictate the future, nor does it mean there's no hope for the client just because they've struggled before. However, if they think success is impossible because they have no willpower or it's their genetics, if they think it's impossible, they will never enroll in your program. They will not buy, even though the premise is not true. It just means that they have not gotten results with you and your approach yet, which leads to handling objections so that people don't make this mistake and count themselves out. Now, here's the really good news. There's only 5 objections potential clients will raise on a sales call with you. I know it seemed like anything could say anything, but there's only 5. And once you know those, you'll know how to get ahead of them. And you can help relieve those concerns in advance and prevent them. So the 5 objections are time, money. Those are going to be the most popular. Spouse, support, fear, and self-doubt. That's it. So let's break these down. The mistake most coaches make is trying to handle these objections after they invite someone. But the real magic is just like your coaching approach, where you got out ahead of the issues before they happen. The key is eliminating the objections before the invitation to your program ever happens. And you can do this because there's only 5. So let's look at these so you'll know how to handle these situations which will arise. So they will arise, I guarantee it, on your invitation calls. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, go do that now at Dr. Shaunna. Feel free to share this to yourself, to another health coach, because most certainly you're going to want to come back and reference this video once you're starting to have those sales calls. Because if you've done the hard work of attracting people to you, you don't want to blow it at the last minute here. Okay, so time objection. If someone says, I don't have time, we need to understand how much time is this problem already costing them? Missed work, low energy, trial and error, doctor appointments, dealing with the pain, the stress. Your program may actually save them years. Affordability of both time and money are really relative. Everyone has time and money for the things that they value and they prioritize. No one has time or money for things they don't value. So a question that I have health coaches in the health professionally ask their potential clients on these invitation calls, as I call them, loving invitation calls, is to ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about getting on the other side of this problem? With 10 being, I have to do it. Failure's not an option. I can't keep going like this. Or 1, if it happens, it happens. If not, I'm fine. If people are a 10 out of 10 serious, failure's not an option, it actually doesn't matter how much it costs. Failure is not an option. I had a mentor once say, if the value is great enough, the cost doesn't matter. But if the value is not great enough, the cost doesn't matter either. And value is in the eye of the beholder. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if somebody is a 5 or a 6, they're not going to buy. So don't even bother offering it. Failure is definitely an option, and if failure is an option, they will. So they might as well do that on somebody else's time and waste somebody else's time and make somebody else's program look like it doesn't work. And no matter how much your program is, it will be too expensive for someone who's a 5 or a 6 out of 10 because they don't really care about the results. The same thing with time. If they're 10 out of 10 serious, they will make the time to solve this. But if they don't care if they get results or not, then in their already busy life, they're going to not make time for this. So you really only want to offer what you do to people who are a 10 out of 10. And if they say 8 or a 9, question them on that, because sometimes they misunderstand the question and they think it means how likely are they to succeed. And in reality, They may not think they can succeed because they never have before, but the question was not how likely they are to succeed, but rather how badly do they want this. And so if they're an 8, you can clarify them. So just to be clear, that means you're 20% okay with never solving this and with always keeping this belly fat, bloating, migraines, etc., whatever their problem was. Sometimes they change their answer, and sometimes they're like, no, I'm okay with keeping the problem. That's really great for you to know right up front now. Because if you offer your program to someone who is not serious, usually they'll just say no. But sometimes, if your price is too low, they might say yes. That's bad because now you'll find yourself dragging bodies across the finish line. It'll be like, come on, I can help you be healthy. Come on. You can't want it more for them than they do. We are, as someone I respect and admire, Taki Moore, says, we are responsible to our clients, but we're not responsible for our clients. So the experience as a health coach with a client that is a 10 out of 10 who really wants it, who follows your guidance and gets amazing results, it is so soul satisfying. And you'll be exclaiming, I love what I do. And your client will be saying, thank you, this is awesome. And that will lead to referrals and testimonials and so on and so on. But if you let somebody in who doesn't really care about this, they're going to no-show, cancel, reschedule, whine and complain, make up excuses why this will never work for them. And you're going to hate what you do because it does not feel good to watch somebody destroy themselves. They can fail on their own time or with someone else that's desperate for a sale. So I drill into our health coaches to never skip this scale of 1 to 10 question. It's the most important one. And if at the end, when they were a 9 out of 10 and you didn't offer it because they weren't a 10, make them beg, make them beg, make them beg. Sometimes they will start to fight for themselves. They do actually really want this. They do. And they start, begging you to take them on as a client. Then okay. And you'll get better at seeing, is that a real or not? Kind of like the kid who promises they'll look after the puppy and it only lasts for 2 weeks. But sometimes what we've done here by not chasing after them and not discounting what we do and not offering it to people who are not serious, some of those people, once they realize this opportunity to finally solve this problem is about to go away, they're going to turn around and say, no, 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 I'm serious. I really want to do this. Please, please, please. And then they can get great results. And that's why sales is service. Because if we just pushed our program and told them how many weeks for how many dollars and how our program slices and dices, and they say they can't afford it, that person is not going to get results. And often that does not end well. On the other hand, if we handle this diagnostic heart-centered conversation with no manipulation, but clearly determining what does this person really want, and then really hearing them and giving them an opportunity to take that next step, you can transform lives. You can be a 6-figure health coach. You can make a phenomenal impact. I have many health coaches who started at 0, who now have helped dozens and hundreds of clients get phenomenal, life-changing results. But it all starts with this one very important conversation, which a lot of coaches try to avoid. So the second objection is money. And this is really similar to time. So that's why I bundled them together here, because we can get out ahead of these before we've made a decision to invite them, when we ask how serious are they about bridging the gap from point A to point B on a scale of 1 to 10. So if somebody says, though, it's too expensive, we need to compare that to the cost of staying stuck. One of our coaches helped a client get off of a $600 a month medication. If that client lived another 20 years, which is expected, that client would have saved over $144,000. Suddenly, the coaching investment looks tiny. The most expensive option is not to do that coach's $1,200 program. By saying they can't afford $1,200, they're actually spending $144,000. And people make these ridiculous trades every day. They use the knee-jerk, can't afford it reason when your true client can't afford not to. When Rachel came to us, one of our first clients at the Health Professional Academy, and she saw what we offered. She was a mom of 5 in a tiny town in Montana. Husband's a farmer. She'd been struggling to figure this health coaching practice out for 2 years, and she realized she was never going to be able to quit her day job as an x-ray tech. And any of the health coaches that she knew were not doing this sustainably either. And she was in tears when we were on that call because she thought she would just have to give up this crazy health coaching idea. And she said to me, I can't afford the time or money to do this, but more importantly, I can't afford not to. And she joined us and reached 100,000 in her first year, has gone on to have a $500,000 practice. Imagine if she had believed herself that she couldn't afford it. She would still be working as an x-ray tech and not able to follow her calling into what she knew she really wanted to do. If they cannot afford the time or money, it usually means it's not that important to them. For example, if someone, God forbid, kidnaps your child, you may not have $1,000,000, but you are darn well going to find it. On the other hand, if the price is not $1,000,000, but $10 for this pen, but I already have a dozen pens, I don't need it. The pen is not my priority. It doesn't matter how cheap they want to sell it to me, I'm not buying. So when somebody cannot afford the time or money, to do your program, and yet they've said they're serious, have an honest conversation with them and look at if they can't afford it, if it's too expensive, compared to what? Because sometimes the cost of not doing it is the most expensive thing. We're not trying to convince them. We're trying to help them make the best decision for them from where they are now to where they want to be. And if you use that framework, come from love, you're going to be on the right track. Now, spouse is another huge objection. You will hear, this sounds good, but I got to ask my spouse, what do you do? Because if you leave the call right then and there, a lot of times out of sight, out of mind. But if you pressure them into a decision without honoring that process they have in place, that doesn't end well either. So instead of waiting till the end of the call to get hit with this objection, you're getting a theme here, aren't you? Earlier in your call, before you've decided whether you're going to invite them, is you ask, who supports you in this? Does their spouse even know how badly they're suffering? Do they know they cry in the closet? Do they know they're exhausted? Do they know this matters deeply? Sometimes they don't. So there are two parts to this. Most often, the spouse wants the best for them, wants them to be happy. Then, if your program delivers them from their point A to their desired point B, they will be healthier and happier. And if the husband supports them in what is best for them, they will support them in enrolling your program in order to get those results. But we need to make that connection in advance. Occasionally, the spouse does not actually want what's best for them, in which case it may not be the wise thing for that client to seek support where there isn't any. Now your job is not to get in between any marriages here, but when you ask them, how do they feel about this? Do they support you? If this is someone who is not supporting them, you can share how difficult it is to make these transformations without support. And then ask them if they're looking and wanting support to help them go from point A to point B. And of course, you are then that support. And then sometimes they have a supportive spouse, but the spouse has no idea that this person is struggling. Then it will be important for the client to share what with their spouse, not just the price of your program, but also why this matters and that they're struggling. And so this is something that you can coach them on or just let them know. Be sure to share that part. And once you've asked them who supports them, and sometimes that question reveals there's no one else that they have to get permission from. But it's nice for you to have all of that information in the heads up before you get to the part where you offer your program. But if they do have someone who supports them, then the follow-up question can be, are they someone who helps you make decisions about your health like this? Should they be on this call? This gives the person an opportunity to have their spouse on the call with you where you can recap the gap that you've discovered, and it eliminates the objection of having to go speak with their spouse later. And then that spouse will know more about what you do than if the potential client is trying to explain your program to them, which is not going to work. And so you're going to be able to answer all of those questions so that they can make the best decision for them. Now, if there's a spouse and they're not available and they can't speak with you right now, but they do have to speak with them, then I have a rule: never leave one call without booking the next. So book the next call, book the follow-up, ideally later that day or the next day. And you can even invite the spouse to be on that next call so that you can answer any questions. All right, now that brings us over to the fear of not knowing it will work, fear it's not going to work, so then they're going to say no, and self-doubt. They might believe that you can get results, but they don't believe it's going to work for them because they're somehow fundamentally flawed. So this gets back to the story that I shared about red licorice and willpower. So again, like with the other objections, we want to ask questions to find out in advance. So what are some of the things that they've tried? What worked? What did not work? And why haven't they already fixed this? This one's a really important one to ask, because if they coulda, they woulda. But these questions will give you an opportunity to hear if they think they're fundamentally flawed or if they feel like it's impossible to get the results. And now, before we invite them, we can reframe and we can share stories and truths as we know them to be, that it is possible to get results, but it's possible they're following an outdated methodology or something that doesn't work, or their physiology. This is where your stories matter, your story, client stories, case studies, because people need evidence that transformation is possible. So share truth, share proof. One of my mentors said, every lesson needs a story and every story needs a lesson. You want to collect the stories and the experiences that help teach your clients what's possible and where they may have flawed or limiting beliefs about what is possible and how to get there. When somebody actually joins your program, it's called closing the sale. Now, here's what surprises most people. The close is not convincing somebody, arm twisting. The close is simply summarizing what they already told you. That transition is where you recap the gap. So we're going to recap the gap. And what you say is, what I hear you saying is you've struggled with XYZ for years. You're exhausted. You've tried everything and you're really wanting ABC dream outcome. You're serious about solving it. You're a 10 out of 10 and it's not okay for it to take forever. And I'm not hearing a clear plan that you have to get there on your own. Did I hear you correctly? That's powerful, because now they feel like seen, heard, understood. These are their words. They won't believe what you say, but they'll believe what they say. And this is what they know and the problems that are important to them and the results they are wanting. And this is opportunity for them to make a line in the sand and say, I have to do this. Then, and only then, do you explain briefly what you do. Not an hour-long pitch about your modules or certifications or methods. They want results. So the call is about them, not you. Keep it simple, clear, confident, and if they're asking for your help, you can reply with your power statement that I've taught in previous videos, and you can find that in my 6-Figure Health Coach book. I'll put a link below that you can get a free copy of it. But the power statement that you would share follows that formula. So after you've recapped the gap, then you say, okay, at the beginning, I said I'd let you know what I've got going on and what I do. And I help these people with this problem get this result. What other questions do you have? That's it. Now, we're not going to say how much it is or talk about our program unless they ask. If they're not asking, they're not that interested. Let them be. And that way you're not chasing. We can keep our positioning as being able to choose. But if they've been following along and they're like, wow, I have this problem and I want this dream come true, the logical question will come up. how much is it? And when they ask the price, don't panic. Most health coaches sabotage themselves here. They say the price and immediately start rambling, discounting, justifying, over-explaining. Nope. Instead, let them know that the investment to take them from where they are now to where they want to be, in 2 months, it's going to be X price, but for right now, it is this price. What other questions do you have? Then zip it and drink water. People need space to process decisions. But if you just say the price and leave it there, there's going to be this awkward pause for you and them. And they're going to feel rushed to answer, perhaps with a reflex of, I can't afford it. I have to think about it. Or you may feel the need to fill the pause with rambling yourself. So instead, what other questions do you have, and drink water? If you're drinking water, you won't undo your sale. And the pause is not awkward because nobody expects you to be talking while you're drinking water. But also, if you just ask them, what other questions do you have? People don't expect they have to immediately give a reply. This gives them a moment. So when you ask what questions do they have, it's normal that people pause to think, do they have other questions, without feeling the need to give a reflexive answer, without fully contemplating this important moment. You're never trying to convince someone to do something against their will. You only ever want to be their best idea. That's it. And then be detached from outcome. This is their life, not yours. We want to hold space for their success, but ultimately they have to decide whether they want to change. And for things to change, they have to change. Easier said than done, but they are responsible for and getting the consequences of their decisions. So do your best to help them come to one of two right answers: a clear yes, and they love it, or a clear no, they want nothing to do with it. Both are right answers. But a body at rest stays at rest. And most people without support stay stuck here forever. And they stay on that trajectory. And sometimes it goes from bad to worse. Sales matters because people do not change through information. They change through clarity, decision, commitment, and action. You do not need to become pushy, manipulative, or fake to become successful at sales. You simply need to come from love, listen carefully, ask the questions to help determine where are they at, where do they want to be, because sales done correctly is one of the highest forms of service. And if you're serious about helping people, making a bigger impact, and finally building a sustainable coaching business, there's a link below to one of our small group trainings. We keep them small intentionally so we can actually help you personally. Now, once health coaches learn how to attract clients, how to enroll clients, and now that they have clients, the next thing that happens that can sabotage health coaches' success on the way to six figures is they will ask, okay, but how do I find the time to do this when I'm already busy? Because most health coaches are already overwhelmed, exhausted. Maybe they're working full time or raising families, caring for everyone else, trying to squeeze their dream into whatever scraps of time are left over. And that's exactly why so many incredible health coaches stay stuck. Not because they don't care, not because they're not talented, but because they never learned how to create the time for the business they say they want. So in this next video, I'm going to show you how to find time, even if you already feel overwhelmed. The exact time management system I used while working 100-hour weeks as a doctor with 4 small kids, how to stop burning out, how to set proper hours of operation, and why building your business in spare time is one of the biggest mistakes health coaches make. This training is one of my superpowers. I'll see you over there. Be good for you.